Up next, the story of one of the greatest fist-raising anthems of the 1980s, straight from the co-writer, who is one of the greatest guitar heroes of his time, on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If music is part of the joy and the fire in your life, you're going to want to subscribe below so you never miss an episode of our daily features, the stories of the greatest songs from the artists. And make sure to check us out on Patreon to become an insider with us. Now it's time for another edition, another episode from our series, Revelations, where featured artists reveal rare stories about their greatest songs. On this installment of Revelations, I got to tell you, I am over the moon to share a part of a very recent Zoom interview, long-ranging interview, that I did with one of the 80s greatest guitarists, the magnificent Steve Stevens, who of course supported Billy Idol throughout his peak, co-writing with Billy on some of his greatest, including the story of today's hit. A song that made us want more. The top 10 smash, Rebel Yell, from the classic album of the same name. In the midnight hour, she cried, no. This song was the first single off that album in 1983. This was after Billy had seduced the airwaves with the new wave classic Dancing With Myself. Rebel Yell actually, it didn't make the chart in the top 40 on its first run. It was re-released in '85 after Billy's popularity just rocketed. And the story of how this song came to be, really cool. As we go into this interview with Steve Stevens, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the brand I always wear. When you go to Zenni.com, you can customize your eyewear with a prescription lens. You can do non-prescription lenses. If you just want the cool look or a certain color, a particular style of lens, you got so much to choose from, you'll love it. Go there today at Zenni.com and pick it out. Here's Steve Stevens. You wanted to raise the bar, and that ambition led to, as you've been talking about a little bit, Rebel Yell, title track for the next record released in 1984. A huge music year. I mean, one of the biggest years in music. I've heard a lot of people, I argue it's the biggest year in pop music ever. Of course, 1966, 1971. There's a lot of years that people will throw up there. But let's talk about Rebel Yell. I mean, one of the greatest anthems of the new wave era. Big chorus. The music is what makes that track so powerful. Tell me about that, because the music came first, right?
Well, it actually came together at the same time. We went in to rehearse for that album, and Rebel Yell wasn't a part of the first initial batch. We had things like Eyes Without a Face. Eyes Without a Face. And a very germ of an idea for Flesh for Fantasy. We had Blue Highway. We're gonna ride on the Blue Highway. But not Rebel Yell. And we went into Electric Lady Studios. And, Electric Lady is on 8th Street in New York. And when I was a kid, I went to school in Manhattan, and me and my friend would cut school and go to the movie theater for $1 next to Electric Lady, where they were playing like Song Remains the Same and the Jimi Hendrix movie and Yes Songs and The Who, Kids Are All Right. All these movies, rock movies, and you could see like 3 or 4 of them in a row. And I always thought, wow, one day I'll be in that studio next door. I'll be able to just go in, let alone record there. They'll let me in. We're in Electric Lady, and it's the guitarist's dream to be in the studio Jimi Hendrix built, and the vibe was incredible and great engineers, and so we needed some more tunes, and we just kind of like demoed up Rebel Yell in the studio. It was just another one of those where things just are like, they just work. Anytime you have to labor on a song, you don't have a winner. You can't make it into something that you can take You can come back to it later and go, you know what, that verse was really good from that song. Let's put it with this other thing. But if a song is not working as a whole, if you don't have the chorus, sometimes you have to move on or whatever. But Rebel Yell was not that case. And I remember Billy had gone to Ronnie Wood's birthday party, and we had the music. Maybe he had hummed the verse, like a scat melody or something. Came in and goes, let's put up the tape for that. I think I have the title. I was at the Ronnie Wood's birthday party, and they were drinking this stuff called Rebel Yell. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah. And I think within the hour, he had all the lyrics. And one of the things we always did with Billy Idol stuff is we knew that there was going to be dance remixes done. So we always put 32 bars in the middle of something, whether it was just groove. We weren't quite sure what we were going to do with it, but we were going to do something because we needed extra music for remixes and things like that. So that's how that whole I Walk the Ward bit came about in the middle of that. Same with Eyes Without a Face.
I walk the wall to you, baby.
These were sections where we were left to experiment and see what we could come up with within the context of the song.
A million times to you.
But then we ran into the problem of, the drummer that we had at the time, we didn't feel it was quite nailing what we were hearing in our heads. Great drummer, but wasn't quite kicking our ass yet, So, but we knew we had the tune, so we cut it to a Lindrum, which we had at that time. Our producer Keith used to program it, so we said, well, let's at least move the song along, use the Lindrum, and then it actually sounded quite good with the Lindrum, But we knew we needed real drums. Okay, we brought in a couple of drummers and session guys, and this ain't working. And then down the hall at the studio was this band Scandal, who was recording. And we heard the drums through the studio door, wall. Well, that guy sounds pretty good. Wow. Listen a little bit more. Oh yeah, this sounds great. It's heavy. So we waited. And it was, who's the drummer? It's Tommy Price. So we ended up getting Tommy, and he joined the band. So he was such an important part of that record that I said, man, you got to go out and tour this. I mean, come on, look what you've done. Look what you created with us. He said, yeah, I think I do. So that was the beginning of that band.
Just to imagine that story of Billy at the birthday party with Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and everybody there and drinking Rebel Yell. And what a great story, man.
I know that Billy's told the story. He said to Keith and Ronnie or something, he said, the stuff we're drinking, yeah, you guys don't have a song title named after it. And I guess one of them said, nah, we wouldn't. He always goes, Street Fighting Man, Rebel Yell. Nah, we didn't. Billy went, right. Okay, good.
Well, you came up with a very interesting, really cool intro for Rebel Yell. It sounded like fusion of electric guitar and keyboard. Just such a gripping intro. Leo Kottke, I know his finger picking was an inspiration for that intro.
Well, there's no keyboards on the intro, and it's all guitar.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's only one guitar track.
Kind of sounds like some keys in there. That's cool.
No keys, yeah. On that record, because keyboards, this is 1983, keyboards are really at the forefront, of new wave. And I said I wanted to try and do everything on the guitar. I remember when I got one of the Queen records, first Queen records, and said no keyboards, no synthesizers used on this record. And I love that. I love that Brian May did all of the arrangements and multi-tracked his guitars to emulate instruments. And I said to the guys, at least give me a shot at trying to get textures out of the guitar. If it doesn't work, then bring in the keyboards, but give me a shot at it to do it with guitar. and in most cases it worked. And so, but you know, I had such a strong background in playing folk music and finger picking style, and I tried to utilize some of that. And you know, that was something that I felt was unique to my playing that maybe a lot of other guys didn't have in their back pocket. You know, because my pride and joy is really sitting with an acoustic guitar. I still love it, and I feel that whenever we write a song, it always starts on acoustic guitar. If you can make it work that way, then you know you've got something. Whereas if you have to rely on all the technology and stuff, then chances are, you know, you don't really have a great song there. So that, you know, so acoustic guitar has always played a role in the Billy Idol stuff. Eyes Without a Face is acoustic based. Sweet 16, all those kind of things. Yeah, the intro was definitely influenced by this kind of syncopated finger style thing that I had gotten from listening to Leo Kottke.
Well, and how was your guitar solo influenced by Chuck Berry and Steve Howe? Because I read that was an influence as well. I love the solo.
Yeah, well, obviously the first two bars are Chuck Berry, you know, and I knew I had to start with traditional rock and roll. You know, we're coming guns blazing, and it's got to come in with something very, very roots rock and very like, yeah, you know, good old bit of punk rock, bit of Chuck Berry, you know. But from there, the idea was to have something other than just notes, and actually the real influence on that was Tommy Bolin. His guitar player played on the Billy Cobham record, and I brought in the CD, and he used to do this thing with an Echoplex where he'd let the regeneration take over, and he'd do this manual thing. It's a song called Quadrant 4. And I played it for our producer, Keith, and he went, wow, that's incredible. I said, well, I don't want to do that because he's done that. And I said, but we need some sort of sound effect that takes your head off, like, what the hell is that? But it has to come from the guitar. And at that time, I was collecting toy robots and toy ray guns and things like that from China. And there was a store in New York that was actually open 24-hour toy store down in the Village. And I used to go there after the sessions and go and get toy robots and things like that. I was home. I was living in the basement of my parents' house, had a black and white TV. and I'm watching, so I watched things like I Love Lucy. Because it didn't matter, you know. I didn't feel left out. Three Stooges and I Love Lucy.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
So I'm laying there, and I've got this little tiny amplifier next to me, and I've got the guitar, and I'm just like playing, and you know, and knew I had the session the next day, and I'm playing with this ray gun thing, and I start to hear it come through the amplifier. I bring it closer and play it, realize, oh, the sound goes through the pickups of the guitar. So next day I bring the ray gun in, and we added some echo and delay to it. That's how it came about.
The ray gun effect.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're such an acclaimed guitarist, but it's not pointed out enough. You're a multi-instrumentalist as well. I mean, not only did you play the lead guitar parts on Rebel Yell, you also played bass, keyboards, synthesizer. Not so much on that record. We had Steve Webster, who was a bass player. We sought him out, and so we had a really great bass player, and then Tommy Price at that point. So there was no need. I only play bass when there's a necessity to do it. I've worked with so many great bass players that I don't need to go near the instrument. But a lot of times I'll lay down the bass as a guide to move the song along, and then in some cases it ends up being the final thing, you know. On my own records, I play bass a lot. There's a certain
sometimes it's a very cool thing that happens when the guitar player plays bass because the parts really lock in together. Sex Pistols record is a great example of that. Steve Jones playing bass and guitar. That's why it sounds so tight. It's the same guy. In some cases, you don't want that. So, but on Rebel Yell, we had Judy Dozier, who was our keyboard player. She played keys on that.
A million times to you.
And then a couple of session guys. So I really just played guitar on that record, and I was happy to just play guitar.
Yeah, that's interesting. I read somewhere that you had. That's good. We like to settle the urban legends that are out there.
Yeah, the album afterwards, I played bass on Whiplash Smile. Yeah.
Well, the guitar part, speaking of the arrangement of Rebel Yell, guitar part right after the first chorus, guitar breakdown after the second chorus. They're just amazing. And then the blazing guitar solo, that drum break. When you were arranging that song, was it something that just kind of came natural, or were those things where you sat down and said, well, let's do this with you and Billy? How did you kind of put that together?
Well, I think, early on, I wanted to emulate the guitar players who arranged their guitar parts as opposed to, guys like Eric Clapton. It's usually just one guitar, certainly with Cream. Blind Faith. He'd play his guitar and then that's it, and brilliant. Same with Van Halen. You don't want to overdub on Eddie Van Halen. It's you're capturing, like Miles Davis. So you don't want to have multi-track. Those guys, that is their inherent style. I come from the school of looking at the song as something to paint a picture on, like some of the more progressive guitar players, or John McGee from, as I mentioned, in the Banshees. Steve Howe from Yes was the guy from me who, maybe he puts classical guitar in the intro and then put some jazz guitar and then psychedelic guitar. He'd really paint a picture with all these different guitar styles. And that really appealed to me, and that was Jimmy Page as well. I think it's a producer's brain more than a guitar player's brain. You're looking at the song as how can you embellish it no matter what style of guitar or whatever, and that's really how I look at songs, as opposed to like I said, the one guitar track.
Rebel Yell does that so well. It's just peaks and valleys, like you said, and it just keeps building. And then you come back down, and Billy's echoes on that song, the vocal echoes, are so great as well.
Give you all and have nothing.
Not too much. It's just enough. It kind of plays with your ear, like you're, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. You guys had to know you had something special with that song, though.
With that whole record. Yeah, with that whole record. We would have do a session. We'd work during the week, and we'd work Saturday too, but we'd have Friday night listening parties late at night. So we'd invite people over to Electric Lady at 1 a.m, or sometimes people would get out of the clubs and come see what we're up to. And we'd have a listening party, and it was no mystery that we had something. I always tell people, sometimes a song won't or a record won't be successful based on somebody screwing up at the label or not promoting it or something. But when you have something undeniably great, it. It's not like, and when you don't have a winner, it too. And you hope for the best, but you got no more money. You run out of, the budget's gone, and you got to put it out, and you're going to put it out as best as it can be. But with Rebel Yell, it was definitely the case of we worked at it until it was fantastic. And I remember we recut Rebel Yell at a different tempo and we thought we had the master, but Keith Forsey came in after the weekend on a Monday, said, we got to recut it. Recut it? What are you talking about? It's brilliant. It's amazing. Because nope, it's not the right tempo, and okay, he was right. He was absolutely right. I don't remember if we recut it faster or slower, but he knew that the something about the groove wasn't right, and we recut it. So we were, we were our own worst critics. I mean, we were definitely tough on each other. We weren't going to settle. I remember always, Billy's one of those guys where if I could do a guitar solo, he'd always want the first take. That's it, first take. And I'd go, I could do it better. I'd always say, I could do it better. All right, you got 5 minutes. And back then it was only 24 tracks, right? So it's not like now with Pro Tools where you can do multiple takes and choose. If you wanted to redo a guitar solo, you had maybe one other track you could do it. In some cases, you had to go over. You better be damn well sure you're going to better it. And Billy would always not let them erase my first take. And 5 minutes would go by, 10. I'm still, and he'd go. He did the talk back, mate. You got it. It's the first take, And I'd come back in after working at it, and they'd play the first take, and I go, "Yep, you're right."
That's awesome. Well, that MTV video was so iconic because you were on there. You're doing your visual windmills. You're a big part of that visual. You end on that slow motion. You and Billy jump.
We actually, Jeff Stein directed it, and he was the guy that did Kids Are All Right. It was determined that, the song lent itself to live video. Billy hadn't done a live video. And also it was a great way to telegraph to the MTV audience how to react. We were going to go out. We knew we were going to do a long tour, at least 6 months. And we were going to play a lot of places that we had never been before, where a lot of bands like Billy Idol had never gone before, small markets and little towns, as well as, New York, Chicago, LA, Boston. So having this live video out there with a cool audience, it telegraphed for our fans how they could come and go wild, and it was almost like a calling card, and Jeff was the perfect guy to capture that. We actually played live at that video shoot. We played a concert for the audience that was done at the Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey. And they announced on the radio, I think a day before, Billy Idol shooting a video, free tickets, go to the Capitol Theater, Passaic, New Jersey. So we had our real fans. Those are real fans in there. And when they're trying to grab at my guitar and all that, nobody told them to do that. That's just how, because we were actually playing, it wasn't just miming or anything. We didn't want to, of course it's the album track in the video, but we were actually playing. And then we played a mini concert. It's actually on YouTube. You can watch and see us play other songs. It's like grainy black and white footage, like the Zapruder film or something.
Well, you've got that cyclone thing going on where you're twisting around. I mean, it's just so much energy. And that's what was so great about the music you guys were bringing. And surprisingly, Rebel Yell peaked at only number 46 on the Billboard Hot 100, and then number 62 in the UK. But Billy hit superstardom. The song was featured in the movie, I remember, The Legend of Billie Jean.
The Legend of Billie Jean, directed by Matthew Robbins.
And it was re-released in the UK in 85, and it went to number 6. Of course, Rebel Yell, it's been used so much in pop culture. Riding in Cars with Boys, Coyote Ugly. Look Who's Talking Too, Big. 16 Candles.
16 Candles.
Final thoughts on Rebel Yell.
We were beautifully oblivious to the success. We started the tour in a van, just like the previous tour. You know, we loved playing that music for the audience. It was energizing, and we had a really hot band. And then, you know, after a couple of months on the road, the venues are getting bigger. Okay, we're playing some theaters now, not just small little clubs. And then we got to Los Angeles, and we played Santa Monica Civic. And that was the first time I went, hey, we must be doing all right, you know?
Hey, thanks for watching. Leave us a comment about Steve Stevens and Billy Idol and this 80s classic. If you like our videos, we do invite you to subscribe below. Be a part of this community. You're going to love it. To get Billy Idol's music and his merch, click on the links below. And to get even more content and to get insider access, check us out on Patreon. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe.